Did everybody get a message that's, yep, I just did. Okay, never mind. So I promised you we would have time for questions on the previous day's stuff. Does anybody have questions on the stuff we went over yesterday?
No.
Nobody?
None here.
I have a question. Do you know when move out inspections are going to be triggered? Just because I have a lot of residents that are starting to move out, and so I didn't know if once they're triggered, I'd be able to actually start on those.
Casey, they can manually trigger, can't they?
Not the way that they were set up, but I can change it. So 1 second. Y'all, I was going to ask about that.
I just looked at my move out board yesterday and it's ready to roll.
Well, the other issue is every single property is set up differently.
Oh, okay.
Which is what we're trying to get rid of at this point. Madison move out. Yours are scheduled 18 days before lease end. Would you rather we do that? Our options are resident put on notice and it triggers it, move out, or lease end.
Can we do notice? Are they, well, yeah, I would rather do notice, I think.
How many
That
days?
way I can have them.
How many days after they're put on? But you already put everyone on notice, didn't you?
Yeah, that's
And
why
I was going to
didn't
say,
know.
I don't want it to be triggered by on notice because you're going to have another quarterly before move out. And I don't want them getting mixed up.
Okay.
Okay, we have quarterlies before move out
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
The
Yep,
beginning of
your
July.
last, well, and I actually normally require them mid to late June. It's your last time through the apartments for your carpet order and all that other stuff, Taylor. You have to do a quarterly then.
Let me, Madison Taylor. Well, let me think about this. I'm going to come up with something that works. Because yeah, when I was going through these the other day, I realized every single property's triggers are different. And that's not going to work. So, and I don't want it to be lease end. I think we need to do move out because if you have people who are moving out earlier, it would only make sense to have it triggered earlier because move out date can change. Lease end date doesn't for LTOs. So let me dig into this.
Okay.
But the whole goal of what Corey and I are working on with cleaning this up, once you guys clear all of your inspections that are on the dashboard and everything and anything that's overdue, is that we have one set of triggers for every property. So they're all experiencing the same thing because I looked through 5 and there were 5 different sets of triggers, which makes no sense to me. You should be able to know if you went to help in another property, how it works for them too.
Right.
But it's also a learning experience because I am not an operations person and never have been. So I'm trying to figure it out. So it takes a little longer. Sorry, guys.
Oh, good.
All right, we ready to go?
I have a minor question.
Go.
It's not about what we talked about yesterday though. So I was just wondering, is it possible for RSMs to have access to the setup tab? Because I was doing the contact points when that was due, but if I had to move them to a different computer, or I had to give them to the leasing manager so that we can do them together, or is there a reason?
Gabs, normally the RSMs just don't mess with the settings at all. I
Okay.
mean, most of that stuff is for leasing and stuff like that, changing rates, updating lease terms, social media, website, and stuff like that. But yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, I know Tina was talking about this. We wanted to go through and look at all of the settings, Corey. So that may change because we also realized that some LPs have more settings than they should and CAs. So I think at some point we're going to go through and re-standardize them. So we'll look at it because it's gotten to the point where we can give very, very specific permissions or not. Like I can give you the permission to update only the templates that are financially related for communication. So I think now that we have those, there may be some changes that we'll make down the road, but it's a pretty intensive process. If you look at it, I think there's over 1,000 different permissions we can offer people now.
which Gabs is the other reason we keep it kind of locked down. But guys, we found one yesterday that people needed access to, and that's secure info. You know, just to simply verify identity of who you're talking to on the phone. So Gabs, don't be afraid to bring stuff up like that.
And I did have a question. Actually, I should have asked Corey this. How do you want to handle that permission with CAs and LPs? Do you want them to have access to that as well?
I would prefer it, Casey,
Yeah.
just because, again, they need to verify who they're talking to.
Okay, I am adding it.
Cool. Well, guys, let's get going. And I need your help today. Let me drag you off of my screen first, all, so you don't make me nervous. Guys,
What?
it's a real thing. It is a real thing.
What is on the wall behind Taylor and Mary and Bree?
We're working on our goal board for 85%.
Okay. Sorry, I just saw all the pieces. I was like, it's like Candyland.
That's kind of what we're going for. But we just started it like 20 minutes ago.
Can you guys see my screen, Entrada?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at this part of training, I need you to help me not screw things up. If you see blue up here, we're in the test environment. All is good. If you see red, tell me don't make changes, like if I start to move somebody out or something, because I'm going to be jumping between. So, like I said, yesterday was just kind of an introduction to the different areas in Entrada that the RSM could work. Today, we're going to get into the more of the nitty gritty of the job, resident ledgers and things like that. So we're going to start just by talking about charge codes. You know, the RSM, the system, you know, with the auto billing and things, uses different codes that we put charges to, you know, lease violations to lease violations, late fees to tenant late fees and things like that. But when a new RSM starts, hey, what charge codes do I even use? Because a lot of these are put on manually. So we are actually going to look very quickly at the income statement itself. This is a community manager report, but I will tell you, you all, including the LMs, I believe have access to run this report, and there's nothing on it that you can't see. So we're going to start just by going to data and reports. And this time we're going to stay in accounting reports, which is where most of the CM reports are. And we are going to focus on this report right here, and it's called Income Statement Budget versus Actual. And all this report's doing is comparing our monthly spend to what we budgeted and our annual spend to what we budgeted. Let's pick on Monica here. So you have to choose your post month, which for what you're looking at, it doesn't matter. Just leave it current month. And then you have to select the budget over here, and then we're just going to generate, and we're going to show the account numbers, and we'll just generate the report. Hopefully Entrada's moving faster than it was earlier.
Good luck.
For real, right?
Yeah.
You guys think you have it bad. My first turn, it populated, so I'm not going to tell you the story so we can go. I'll tell you later. So the RSM section of the budget, and each position has one. You know, the LMs have marketing, but the RSMs doesn't fall in expenses. It actually falls in income. And it's this other operating revenue. Some of these are auto billed by the system, you know, utilities, late fees, things like that. But a good portion of these are actually manually put on by staff at the property. So when we're wanting to know what charge codes we use, it's actually it's not always going to be the name here. So what you do is you go over to the year-to-date section, which is right here, which is on this side, and we're going to drill down on the actual numbers. If I can quit clicking the wrong buttons. If you didn't know, anything in blue in Entrada has another level of information below it. So like for tenant application fees, I'm just going to click on this 14,000. And it's going to show you what is feeding into that GL code. And your charge codes are right here. So we know for application fees, it actually does match what was there, tenant-application fees. But some of these codes, like late fees, there are multiple different codes. I was looking at a property earlier this week. Their actual one-time late fee hits in just late fees, but their per diem or per day late fees hit in tenant dash late fees, but they both feed to this same GL code. So again, as an RSM, just drill down on these numbers and look and see, because when you have to adjust things or put things on the account, it is very important you're using the charge codes that we use specifically for your property. Any questions on that?
No.
None at all? Cool. So let's jump to a residence account. So again, I'm just going to go residence. I'm going to click on it. And actually, I am not going to do that. I'm going to go to the dashboard. So we talked yesterday about places that the RSM, really all staff needs to watch on their dashboard, and they're housed down here. So for this, since we're an RSM, I'm going to click on residence, and I'm going to see what kind of activity I have. And we have a lot of future move-ins. So I am going to click on this first one. Casey, I wonder why they're still showing up here if they're current.
Under
I
contact.
wonder if it's a test environment thing, because they've already been moved in.
Wait,
But
these are resident contact needed. They reached out to
Oh,
us.
I'm on the wrong thing. Oh my gosh.
You're good.
That's what happens when I'm nervous, Casey. Okay.
Be nervous.
So we can see we have a move-in right here. So I'm going to click on that and just go into the resident account. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is just adding charges and removing charges. And we'll just play in this one since it's a move-in. But adding and removing charges in Entrata is actually fairly easy because Entrata separates charges and payments. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. So I'm going to pretend that this person was supposed to be charged an early move-in fee and wasn't billed it through the scheduled charges. So I need to manually add it to the ledger. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply come in here. I'm going to drop down, and I know this is a charge, not a credit. So I'm just going to click on add charge. And then your charge codes, if you don't know what you're looking for, try to be literal with them, because the names on these tend to be literal. So I am just going to type in the word early, and boom, we have an early move-in, late move-out fee. So I'm going to choose that. And then we're just going to pretend, Casey Cove, that the early move-in fee was $500. We know our post date is right here, and our post month is right here. For adding charges, that isn't hugely important unless you're adding rent. When we're removing charges, it's absolutely important. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But guys, you should never add a charge to an account without a description, or remove one for that matter without a description. The way I want you to think about these descriptions on these is, if somebody picks this ledger up 2 years from now and knows absolutely nothing about our business or about accounting, they can look at your description and know what happened. So we are just going to say tenant chose to move in on August 1st and incurred an early move-in fee. Do not shorten words. Make sure you're not shortening sentences or anything out else. Make it clear. And then we're simply going to add the charge. And now if we click full ledger, we can see that our charge is right there. So I go in and add this charge. The LM sees it on the account and said, Corey, what the hell are you doing? They weren't supposed to get an early move-in fee. Well, crap. Now I've got to remove the stinking thing. So There's a couple of different ways you can do it. I am going to click on this charge again. And the first thing I notice is I'm going to see I have a button to reverse it. I am going to beg you never to use that button. When we're removing charges, it is possible, based upon this post month, that you could be reversing a charge in a prior period. I can't tell you the headache that causes accounting when that happens. So instead of you having to be an expert on accounting and figure this stuff out, I am going to ask you, if you truly need a charge reversed, you need it off the ledger, I want you to email Matt Westland. I want you to screenshot this and send it to him in the email and say, hey, is it okay for me to reverse this charge today? If he says yes, you have permission to use that button. If he says no, then he will handle it. He'll remove the charge, so on and so forth. So we know we're not going to use this reverse charge button.
Hold on, Corey, just quickly on that.
Yes.
In the email to Matt, don't just screenshot this. Make sure he can see the name of the resident, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but right now it's blocked. So make sure we can see the name, but also give him a reason why.
Oh, thank you, Tina. Yes. Yeah. Don't just email and tell him to remove it. Yes. Do give him some background on the situation of why it needs to be removed. Maybe it's a trash fine that a roommate came in and took responsibility for it, or a party where you find everybody in the apartment for a noise violation, and you find out somebody was in another state at that time and had documentation. So yes, give him the background. Thanks, Tina. That's why Tina's an SVP and I'm not. No, just kidding. Okay. So, but answer me this. Is there another way, and this is anybody, is there another way to remove this charge without reversing it? Or remove the charge from the ledger without reversing it? Anybody? Nobody? Go, Alicia. And guys, use your voices because I have you drugged to the side. Alicia, go.
Can we add a credit?
You could. How would you add that credit? Tell me.
You would do
not the details
Sorry.
of it.
Okay.
Well, no, I'll just do it. I didn't ask the question very well. Alicia, you are very correct. We could just add a credit and offset it. Accounting, since you're on, is there any time that is not appropriate?
Sorry, did you just ask us, Corey?
I did. Is there any time that adding an offsetting credit to the same charge code would not be appropriate?
Probably, but I don't know right now.
Okay,
off the top of my head, the biggest one would be if you're applying a credit for something that happened in a prior month. So if you're trying to add a credit for, if you're trying to add a credit for April rent in May, then that's a problem.
But I think you gave the answer there without giving the answer. I think do not do this to a scheduled charge. Any scheduled billing, do not do this to, because it screws up reporting that we do for investors, to Fred and the people above us and everything else. Let me re-ask the question, accounting. For some other random some random other income code that's not a scheduled billing or something scheduled by the system like a late fee. So we're talking a lease violation. In this case, an early move-in fee that was manually added or something like that. It's not going to screw up any reporting. It's just simply removing the charge from the ledger.
Correct.
Cool. All right. So we are going to add a credit and offset this charge. But here's the whole thing, guys. You've got to open the charge up and you've got to look at this charge code. Because if we're truly trying to get rid of that charge itself, we want the charge code to match. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, Tina, you have a sour face.
Oh no, I just burnt my mouth on my coffee.
Okay. That's a good reason. I thought it was for what I was saying. So let me drag you back over to the side so you don't make me self-conscious. Okay. So again, we're going to open the charge up and we're going to look at it. We know that the charge code at this point. We're also going to look at the original description because what we're removing has to tie into that somewhat. But we don't need to worry about the post month at this point because we're not reversing the charge. So we know we got 500. We know tenant early move in. So we are this time going to add a credit. Again, I'm just going to type in the word early. We know our amount is $500. Somebody tell me, do I need to be entering negative 500? Ooh, it won't even let me.
Because you're already under the credit.
Great job. And it actually won't allow you to. I didn't know that. So thank you, Miss Taylor Leach. You are 100% correct. So we know our amount is 500. Then we need to tie into the original description. Tenant was actually a wrap lease that moved in at the end of July and would not have incurred this fee. Guys, my question to you is if you pick this ledger up 2 years from now, you saw the original charge, read the description, you see the offsetting, removing it from the ledger, and read the description, would you understand what happened? Anybody?
Yes.
Cool. That's exactly how I want you to approach these resident ledgers at all times. Just be clear, be concise. I know we have a tendency to rush on stuff like this, especially if we're busy. Do not rush. Make sure there are no spelling errors in those descriptions. And guys, I think I have a pretty good vocabulary at 54, but 53. But I Google words all the time to make sure I'm spelling it correctly because we're in a business environment. It needs to be business. So if you're not sure, Google it, figure out how to spell it, so on and so forth. Do you guys want me to add and remove some other charges? It's a pretty easy process. Do you feel comfortable? Do you want more examples?
I'm comfortable.
We're good.
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 Everybody feel comfortable finding their charge codes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal. Let's jump into move-ins and move-outs. So again, I'm going to go back to the dashboard so we can start over. So again, I want to look at what move-ins I have pending. So I'm going to click on this residence tab right here. These menu items are going to change, and I'm going to click on move-ins. And I instantly see we've got one from April 21st. And I instantly see I have a shortcut. Do we use this shortcut? Anybody?
No.
Never. Can somebody tell me why we don't use a shortcut to do a move-in? And guys, there's no wrong answers. I'm not trying to make you feel stupid.
You have to check the account first, make sure they paid, make sure everything's done first.
Correct. What else should you be checking if you're moving somebody in?
Also check the lease for the
inspection.
schedule for the lease charge versus the scheduled charge.
Great job. Bree, the fact that you knew that, I am proud of you. I expect Miss Monica to know that. I do not expect Anellan to know that. She's right. You haven't done any of the due diligence before you click that button. We haven't gone and looked at the lease, verified those scheduled charges, or anything else that we need to do prior to hitting that button. So never use the button, ever. So instead, I'm going to work from the residence account. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the scheduled charges. So we're going to click on reoccurring charges and credits. And I'm going to blow it up. So I'm going to hit this bulk edit. So I know we've got the rent amount at $609. We've got tenant insurance at $13. And then this person is a person with a pet. So we have pet rent. What would I see possibly down here if there was information here? Anybody?
Rent concession.
A monthly
Rent
concession.
Use your voice.
Good job,
Yes,
Mary.
rent concessions. Good job, Mary. So what am I going to do if I see a concession down here?
Gonna make sure that all-
Confirm there's an addendum signed for that.
Good job, Miss Taylor Leach. Yeah, I'm going to look and see if there's a concession addendum. And I'll be honest, guys, if I don't see something down here, should we be looking and seeing if there's a concession addendum?
Yes. Yeah.
We really should, unless you are a stellar property and don't have to offer any concessions, which is very few of us. For every move-in, look and see if there's a concession addendum if you see nothing here. So we know our charges, so we're going to cancel this out. We're going to go to the Documents tab, and I'm going to pull the lease. Oh, and actually, I'll pull the signed one. Uh-oh.
It may be because you're in the test environment.
Ah, son of a gun.
Crashed. Made
It did. It crashed.
No.
We love it.
Well, here, we'll just show the example from here. I just won't move him in. I'll do that on the other side. All right. So again, we check the scheduled charges. And in this example, we only have two. So we have the 609 rent and then the tenant insurance. So I am going to close that 609 and 13. We're going to go to the Documents tab, and I'm going to pull the signed lease. So the first thing we're going to look at again is the concession addendum, because I did not see a concession there. So resident must fulfill the lease agreement and the concession value of $809. And we know that's from a waived activity fee. And then the second rent installment. So we should not see any concession in the scheduled charges, not under what we're looking at. This, remind me if I'm wrong, Casey, would be a one-time concession, not a recurring, and we're looking at recurring.
That is correct.
Perfect. So we're going to close this down. We know our rent amount's right. We know the insurance amount is right.
I ask a favor while they're in there.
Yep.
Can you make sure if you do not see a guarantor waiver fee charged there that you're looking to make sure there is a signed guarantor form?
Let's go
Just
all
because.
the way. It's still at the very end, Casey, correct?
Almost very end of the lease, but before the other addendums. So it
And
should be right
introducing.
above that. They don't have one.
Would it be signed above or below? No, above.
Above the guarantor waiver, they may be a self-qualified because this is an older lease. So Casey Cope's a bad example, but
But it's actually not, Casey. If there's no guarantor on file, what do we have to have?
Leap.
Leap. Did anybody see any leap charges on the scheduled charges?
and if they're a non-student, they may have paid the one-time fee, so then you would have to look at LEAP to see if they're a non-student. So
Correct. So no, I think it's a good example. So we don't have a guarantor. So again, you should have caught that, saw there was no leap fee, so on and so forth. And I'll be honest, guys, that should be caught during a pre-lease audit. It absolutely should.
which hopefully all of you have started working on. Yay!
Guys, if CMs are not approving the final countersign of the lease, you have to. And make sure you know what you're looking for. If you don't, call us and ask. So anyway, so we've got the resident. We've checked the scheduled charges. We're going to assume that they're correct, so on and so forth. I still don't want you to use that button, so sorry I closed out. So we are going to go over here. And we're going to perform the move-in with this button. Some of your move-ins, and this may be because we're in the test environment, you're going to see move-in checklist. And both the move-in and the move-out have a checklist associated with them. The items listed in there are deemed so important by the system that they're in there so you can check off that they've been done. You have red items and yellow items. Red items are required. You cannot move forward until it's been acknowledged or done. Yellow items are quote unquote optional. It'll let you move the resident in if they're not done. But guys, they're there for a reason. Make sure we're doing them. On the move out, it's things like collect keys, add forwarding address, so on and so forth. With the move in, it's, hey, have you collected rent from this person before we give them keys and let them move in? So we are going to click the perform move in button. Again, we have a resident and future status. Oh, and here's your move in checklist. So have you verified, absolutely verified, that every lease, piece of leasing paperwork has, been signed, executed, the numbers are correct, everything else? We have. Are we giving them keys? If we are, have they paid their first month's rent installment? We know that that's a cardinal sin that none of you would do. So we are going to override the requirement knowing that we have a money order in hand.
And if it's move-in day, can they pay with a personal check?
No. No.
Just throwing it out there.
If it's after the 10th of the month and they're paying current month rent, can they pay with a check?
No, has to be a money order or
Thank
certified
you.
check.
Guys, it worries me a little that you all weren't answering at once. So if it is after the 10th of the month and they are paying rent for the current month, it has to be a money order. Does anybody know why?
Certified.
It doesn't get returned.
Because it doesn't get returned at the end of the month and screw you. We evict in the current month. In other words, if you haven't paid rent in May, we're filing the eviction in May. Guys, the banking world, for all their, steps forward, still moves slow as molasses. So you accept a personal check on the 12th of the month. It may be 2 to 3 weeks if it's returned by the time you get notified. By then, your zero delinquency month is hosed. We have to start an eviction process that is going to take weeks, so on and so forth. Now, if they're prepaying for rent, do we care if it's check or a money order?
No.
No, we don't. It's only if they're paying for the current month's rent and it's after the 10th of the month. So.
Hey, Corey, I have a quick question.
Go.
Do we have a cutoff date for move-in payment this year yet or no?
Expand on your question.
Okay. He said, go ahead. So last year, if they didn't pay by a certain day before move-in, then they couldn't move in on move-in day. We gave them a different day to move in.
Oof. I'm not a fan. I'll be honest. People bring payments in on move-in day all day long.
Right. It's fine with us, but they did change it last year, so we just wanted to make sure we knew what was happening this year.
Yeah, no, that's customer service crap.
Okay.
We'll talk about move-in day both from Casey's point of view and from my point of view as we get closer to it.
Okay.
But the RSM, I don't want to take up a bunch of time on this call, but the RSM should be prepared on move-in day with a list of who hasn't paid, who has, how much they owe, everything.
Okay.
So they can accept those money order payments and move people in. Yeah, that's crap.
Corey, can I circle back around real quick to something with the banks?
Yeah, go ahead.
I faced an issue this month horribly that when I was running my daily reports, checking my delinquencies and stuff on rent and double checking, making sure I'm doing everything I should, within the last week, from the 6th right up until the 9th, I was having more people pop up on my resident aged receivables whose payments had been returned from them making their rent payment up until the 3rd. So when you're doing that, make sure you're checking to make sure that these new names are, if there's no new names, that's great. But make sure that there's no new names popping up because their payments have been returned due to non-sufficient funds or typing in their account wrong or whatever the case may be. I ran into that issue a lot last week, and it was awful making those phone calls because they had no idea.
Well, and what do we do, guys, if that happens? Rent's already late. You get a return payment. You instantly. Oh, go ahead, Shay.
So we also had a lot of return payments. But I got emails about chargebacks and people denying their bank from letting the payments go through. Apparently, and somebody called about this, apparently we're showing up as fraud or as likely fraud for our application fee and at least one of our rent fees.
I'll be honest, then their bank needs to pay the late fee. Here's the whole thing. If we screw up, and let's say we screw up and we're going to say we accidentally run a payment twice, which we shouldn't be able to, and the resident gets a late fee at their bank, who do you think the bank's going to want to pay that late fee? They're going to want us to. So if the bank screws up and causes the resident to get a late fee, don't dare remove that late fee. The bank can pay it. We're not going to remove our charges because of a bank error. We're not. And I no offense, Gabs, I see that as a bank problem, not a Casey Cove problem. Am I wrong in thinking that way, Tina? If we're showing up as fraud?
I mean, that's a tough one because there's no way the bank's going to pay that late fee. So you're saying the resident's going to pay the bank fee or the late fee. So it's hard to give a blanket answer on that one. It's really more of case by case. And honestly, on the history of the resident, if there's something happened where it's the first time their bank is marking it as fraud and they didn't do anything. Now, if they go in, because you can check when a resident has marked it as like a chargeback or an NSF, then absolutely that is on the resident to pay that. But it's kind of hard to give a one way or the other. I know that's not really an answer, but it's kind of case by case.
Can I ask a question? Because this is what confuses me. When my bank says something is likely fraud, they send me a notice and I have to decide if I want to or not. And I would know I paid $609 on that date, and I would know that's not fraud. So
I think sometimes it can take a day or two, at least for mine, to give me that alert. So I think if the resident can prove when they submitted the payment and then they said yes to the bank, if they actually tried to pay us ahead of time and the bank took a couple of days to mark it as fraud, then I would probably waive the late fee. But if the bank gave them the notice within the time frame and they took 3 or 4 days to acknowledge it, then no, we're not waiving that late fee because it's on the resident to acknowledge that fraud request timely. That makes sense.
It does. So guys, I think on that, if you ever have questions, reach out to us. Does everybody know how to look at why a payment was returned? Just out of curiosity. If I even have one no, I want to look at it. Do I have one no? Guys, you have to interact with me or it's going to drive me crazy.
I do.
I think I do, but can you show us?
Yeah.
Yes, I would be glad to. So let's jump out of here. Ooh, guys, I was getting ready to move that tenant in the live environment, and you did not tell me. Okay, so the first thing I need to do, I need to know if somebody had a return check. So I'll be honest again, I'm going to go back to data and reports and pull that income statement again. Who said that? Casey Cove, you said you had some?
Yeah.
So we'll pull this for Casey Cove for the month of May. If I start singing, guys, don't worry. I got Zach Brown on in the background. Okay.
I was just about to start singing too.
I know, right? Uncomfortable silence. So we know an NSF fee is another income charge. So we're just going to go down here and we can instantly see they had 3. So we're going to click on it. And actually, I think that's more than 3. It is. Whew, you did have a bunch. You had 6 of them. So all I'm going to do is go into this resident's account. So I'm just going to click on his name. We're in his ledger. And I'm going to click on reversals. Does anybody know why I'm clicking on reversals?
Because they don't pop up unless
returned, and so it's no longer like.
Correct. When a payment's returned, the payment is no longer visible. It actually removes it from the ledger completely, kind of. So we're going to click reversals. And then we can see the payment and we can see that the payment was returned. So I'm going to click on this charge. And it's right here in black and white. So it was a chargeback because of fraud. And look at the description. The cardholder is claiming that the transaction was fraud. So this isn't the bank. This is the actual cardholder, which could be a parent, which it probably is. The resident is Oliver. The parent is Andrew. But again, this isn't our fault. If they're using their card to pay the rent, they should know it. So in this instance, I would not remove the NSF fee under no circumstances. They initiated this themselves. Any questions?
No.
Cool.
No.
Wait, I had a case like that where the parent did that exactly, but they still haven't paid the NSF fee. Like, and try to charge backs, reviewed the case.
How do they pay their rent? Do they pay it with?
Oh no, I meant to say it was an applicant. I'm sorry. It was an applicant.
I'll be honest, Katrina, if they never sign a lease, there's not much we can do about it.
Okay. Do you just want me to remove the NSF fee for that one?
I don't think so, but you would close the account out. Like if they never sign a lease, what do you do with it, LMs? Do you eventually cancel that applicant?
I canceled it, but it still has the charge on there.
Katrina, when you canceled it, did it immediately start the financial move-out process?
Mm-hmm.
So what you should have done is process that financial move-out and send them the statement with the balance on it.
Yeah, that does it automatically.
Guys, some of these fees, NSF fees, backgrounds for like applications and things, we incur money. If we initiate that or because of the tenant doing something like this and it incurs an NSF, we also incurred that NSF. So we can't just be removing these charges or wiping them off the books or whatever. If you go to a store and